Hello and welcome to the first edition of the BackBenchers Political Podcast. My name is Luke Redmond and I'm joined by my good friend James Nolan once again. James, how are you doing this afternoon?
Hello Luke and hello everybody.
So, the big news, and we are Irish, so we're going to be talking Irish politics here. The big news from yesterday, the enormous story, Enda Kenny has stepped aside as Fine Gael leader, and that means he's stepping aside as Taoiseach. There's going to be a replacement. That has invoked the Royal Rumble of the Fine Gael leadership. It's Varadkar in one corner, it's Coveney in the other. We're saying fight. The referee's dinging his bell. Who's going to be the next Taoiseach, James?
Well, can I just say, before we get into that, if I'm being quite honest, I think the shit has finally hit the fan in Fine Gael, because not only has Enda Kenny resigned as leader yesterday and vacating his post as Taoiseach, but today Michael Noonan has announced his intentions to step aside as the Minister for Finance, and he will not be running in the next general election. So
Big news.
I'm wondering, is there rumblings going on within the Fine Gael camp? Is the old guard moving aside and the new guard in likes of Varadkar and Coveney, perhaps Simon Harris, who we all know isn't really friends with Varadkar, to say the least. But is there something going on? Because if you remember last week, Brendan Howland, the leader of the Labour Party, predicted a snap election. So never mind within Fine Gael. Is there something going on within Leinster House that we don't know about? Is there going to be an election soon? I would put money on it that there is going to be, because the already unstable government is showing more instability. The fact that they're dropping like flies, that's literally the way it is at the moment.
Well, we're going to be like, it's certainly a situation where it's changing significantly. We're going to have a new Taoiseach, a new finance minister, probably a new Taoiseach. I can imagine that the new Taoiseach will want Frances Fitzgerald as his Taoiseach, his or her Taoiseach, if any woman decides to come forward in the leadership contest. Certainly, Simon Harris is going to be put to the fringes if Leo Varadkar takes charge. So it's an earthquake that was waiting to happen in Irish politics, and now that it's happened, is another earthquake a snap election? Because, like you've been saying, all the politicians and everybody on the inside has been sort of hinting towards it. And nobody's saying it's not going to happen. Nobody's been ruling it out. And with an unelected, if you will, Taoiseach, it's certainly moving in that direction, isn't it?
And I'm sorry to interrupt for a second, but all while this is happening, you have Danny Healy-Rae claiming that it's dangerous to drive after having a big meal.
Yeah, you would trust the Healy-Raes to take away from the important side of things.
But yeah, back to the serious matters now, and I emphasise the serious matters.
Is that not the serious matter?
No, not quite.
No.
Maybe to the people of Kerry.
Maybe.
There's definitely some rumblings in the jungle, but I think at the moment, as you said before we went on air, if Varadkar's in pole position, he's making moves. Do you want to just enlighten us with current move standings in that?
Yeah, in the leadership race at the moment, 29% of people who will be eligible to vote in the Fine Gael leadership contest are in the Varadkar camp and 17% in the Coveney camp. High-profile names, Simon Harris is firmly in the Coveney camp. That's to be expected. Another high-profile name, the Taoiseach herself, Mrs. Frances Fitzgerald, is in the undecided camp. And Richard Bruton, the Minister for Education, well, I would expect him to come out in favour of Coveney because he's a slightly more conservative politician. However, he hasn't done so far. He is currently in the undecideds. So, two high-profile names, undecided. It'll be interesting to see what way they move as well. Michael Noonan as well, undecided.
And Kenny still undecided.
Enda Kenny, yeah, I'm pretty sure he is also undecided, but yeah, he is indeed Enda Kenny undecided. So plenty of undecideds, and where the big names go, their entourage will follow them. So you can expect wherever Kenny goes, Fitzgerald will go. Wherever Bruton goes, much of his sort of junior minister for education and all that kind of group, they will go. So it's very much a situation where, you've got two camps, the Radker camp and the Coveney camp. I can't see anybody else joining this contest now. It's going to be one or the other. You've got the progressive side of Fine Gael, the more left-wing side, with Radker, whereas the more conservative side with Coveney. So it'll be very interesting to see, do people go with their more conservative Fine Gael vote, or do they go with their more progressive Fine Gael vote? And that we're yet to see.
Yes, that's correct. Personally, if Radker opens up too much of a lead, Coveney will find it hard. He'll be relying on the likes of Enda Kenny and Bruton, Fitzgerald, as you say, to side with them. But I'm going to be very interested in the next few weeks to see where those guys go. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I if you were to make a prediction now, who is going to be the next Taoiseach of this country?
It's going to be Leo Varadkar, but for how long is another question.
So you reckon Varadkar has this sewn up?
Yes, I can't see it swinging Coveney's favour. Of course, I could be wrong, but no, I fully expect Varadkar to come through it. He's got a strong support base already, and Coveney has a bit of ground to make up. So, and obviously Varadkar, he probably is the slightly more higher profile of the two. He
obviously being openly gay and having been the Minister for Health and the Minister for Transport and Tourism, and he's been so many things as Varadkar.
He's at a decent age for a politician as well to make the next step. So,
well, he would be, of course, one of our. I think our youngest ever Taoiseach. He would be, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Coveney probably is at a decent age as well. I'm not too sure how old Coveney is off the top of my head. But, yeah, I think Varadkar's got it sewn up. I think Varadkar's going to be the next Taoiseach of Ireland. But, and there is a but I don't think he's going to last long, because I think Micheál Martin's just waiting to pull the plug and for the water to go, pardon the pun, the water to go down the drain.
Indeed, the water, but I'm gonna broaden the picture then. The likely thing to pull this government under is that the next leader of Fine Gael not being able to reconcile with Fianna Fáil and keep that supply, confidence and demand, and supply-demand, whatever you want to call it, keep that agreement in place. I think they're going to struggle, because Enda Kenny managed, as much slack as he took and as much criticism as he took, he managed to keep that government going. I don't think that either Coveney or Varadkar will be able to, because they're more divisive than Kenny.
Yes, and to be fair, Enda Kenny does deserve a bit of credit for that. He kept the government going. He brought us some economic growth. He did a few good things in his time.
We're not here to bash Enda Kenny. I will say he made there were some red line issues I think he messed up on. Water charges is the standout one. He made an absolute balls of that, and I think that really hurt him. Another thing that some people aren't happy with, the hardcore Fine Gaelers, that he made any sort of deal with Fianna Fáil was toxic to them. And another thing that Enda Kenny has been seeing is he's been there under the rise of Sinn Féin, who have been slowly pushing up towards the numbers. In one poll a couple of months ago, even put them ahead, incredibly, of Fine Gael. So that's the criticisms I would have. Certainly the positives, he's managed to fix the economy and he took on a job that was a very difficult task. And, he's been Fine Gael's longest ever serving Taoiseach, so, he does deserve some credit.
Yes, he does. He bows out. But, yeah, I don't... It's all lying with Micheál Martin at the minute.
It is. The ball, as they say, the ball's in his court as to whether the government is going to last or not.
This government will last as long as he wants it to last, and he'll call it a day when it suits him. Also, let's not forget the new leader and subsequent next Taoiseach. They're gonna have to keep the independents on their side as well. Shane Ross and co.
Shane Ross, indeed, and I think he's been very unhappy with his role as Minister for Transport. I don't think he fancies it.
I don't think the public fancy him as the Minister for Transport either.
He's been very ineffective, and I think a number of people have been criticising him. I thought he actually handled the Bus Éireann dispute quite well, as amazing as that might sound to some. I thought, he had to be consistent in his stance, and he was consistent, but I think overall he's been a terrible Minister for Tourism, Sport and Transport, because he hasn't done a lot.
No, he hasn't. We've been hearing his name in the media. It's been for a lot of wrong reasons.
Indeed. His
son holiday in Rio.
Quick to walk out on that aviation meeting. He came for 2 minutes, spoke and left, and some people saw that as insulting, considering I think Radker, when he was in that ministerial position, spent an hour or so at that particular event, where the year he was Minister for Sport, Tourism and etc. The ministerial titles in Ireland are quite ridiculous at times.
Also, quite famously at this stage, Ross had the Constitution waved in his face by Enda Kenny, so does that tell you how stable our government is and how well they coerce and work together?
Well, I think it's interesting, because I'm looking at a poll in front of me here, and the Independent Alliance are polling in the most recent poll, which was conducted by Behaviour and Attitudes or the Sunday Times. The Independent Alliance, or Mr. Ross's party, are on 4%. In last year's election, they won 4.2%. So support for them has stagnated, which is interesting in government for such a thing to happen. But also interesting is that Fine Gael are on 28%, 2.5% higher, or in the poll, 2.5% higher than they actually won in the election. So
why don't you go down from all the popularity ratings from top to bottom? That give everyone the gist of how things look in the country at the minute.
Okay, so that most recent poll, Fine Gael 28%, Fianna Fáil 27%, Sinn Féin 18%, Labour 4%, Solidarity People Before Profit, formerly known as the Anti-Austerity Alliance People Before Profit, they're on 1%. Stephen Donnelly's former party, the Social Democrats, on 1%. The Greens, higher than the Social Democrats, on 2%. And Renua, just about on the board, 1%. And Independent Alliance, 4%. And then Independents and others on a whopping 14%. So that's where, that's quite even across the board in terms of the parties.
And I noticed the popularity rates for the smaller parties have declined since last year's election.
Yeah, indeed. The Independents and others, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin, have shown themselves to be the four big powerhouses, particularly Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin, whereas Labour and all those other smaller parties, if we go back to the general election, again I'll say, Labour got 6.6%, now they're polling at 4%. The Anti-Austerity Alliance People Before Profit got 3.9%. Now they're polling at 1%. So their vote has collapsed by 3/4. Incredibly, the Social Democrats won 3%. They're on 1%. The Greens, I think, have maintained their vote. It's pretty even. And Renew and the Independent Alliance have also maintained a pretty even vote. So really, the collapse can be seen on the far left with Labour, and even on the further left with Solidarity, People Before Profit. And Sinn Féin has been sucking up those votes like a big vacuum cleaner.
That's quite true. And how far can they go in the next general election, whenever that may be? With the way they're polling at the minute, could the unthinkable happen, and could Sinn Féin make up at least a part of the next government?
Well, the next government is inevitably going to have to contain two of Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin next time. I don't see a repeat of the independents coming in with one of the front three parties, because it's quite clear to me that Fianna Fáil's vote has risen too much for that to happen. They're not going to want to sit in opposition the next time round. Sinn Féin, I think they're pretty happy to sit in opposition. They're polling 3.1%, 4.1% higher than they did in the general election. So, are they going to be part of the next government? How far can they go? I'd say right now their ceiling is 20% of the popular vote. In terms of seats, I would say their ceiling is about 35 seats, maybe 40 on a really good day. But if they have 40 seats, then they have a lot of pulling power to go into coalition with somebody.
That's correct, yeah. But how do you see Fine Gael the Fine Gael leadership race going?
Well, I personally, I see it. I do see Radker winning, and I think that actually is going to alienate a lot of people because I think a lot of Fine Gael voters are more socially conservative, financially conservative. We're seeing they're quite corporatist. They like having this low corporate tax. That's what they vote for. That's what they like. And I think the Irish people, in general, I think that they like this whole kind of tax arrangement. Maybe not people who are more working class, but I think the middle, upper, and rich are in favour of much of Fine Gael's policy. So I don't see the Fine Gael vote dropping too much under Coveney, but under Radker, a lot of those key Fine Gael policies could go, and with that, some of their vote.
And let's just move away now. On the other side of the Irish Sea, the UK, and of course just north. The UK general election is upcoming. How are things looking over there?
The UK. Well, if we look at the polls in the UK, it's quite fascinating. I'm just going to get them up there now, so you'll have to excuse the typing. Right now, the Conservatives, as I'm sure you know, have a massive lead over there. Theresa May's Conservative Party, miles ahead of Labour, and it would seem that they're going to have a huge majority now. This comes back down to Ireland in a massive way because of course, Brexit. And the Conservatives very much in favour of a hard Brexit, whereas Labour are advocating for a more soft Brexit. So it's interesting. Notably, in recent days, Labour's poll numbers have gone quite as high as 34%, which is their highest in a very long time. So
I've noticed on social media, a lot of people are saying Corbyn is releasing a lot of ideologies that are good in principle, but probably won't be good in practice. Is this the reason why you feel it could be increasing, or is there any other factors to it?
I think a lot of people liked his election manifesto the other day. It was quite. The release of the Labour manifesto was well received, but most of their policies don't really make sense from a fiscal point of view. You look at the money and you look at the cost. Labour haven't been doing their sums very well, but I've been fascinated. If you look at the poll numbers in the past 4 polls, they've got 29%, 33%, 34%, 32%. This is good numbers. Whereas the Conservatives' numbers have also been very consistent: 47, 47, 49, 45. So the smaller parties, much like they are here, are suffering at the hands of the two big parties as people try to spoil the vote and try to get the lesser of two evils elected, if you will.
Yes.
So definitely, the Conservatives for me are going to win this election. There will probably be a hard Brexit, which, you know, if you're Irish, you're sceptical over. But, you know, that's how I see it going. What'd you say?
Or sorry, if you're Irish living in the UK, you'd be very sceptical over it.
Sorry, we can cut this part out. Yeah, certainly, if you are Irish living in the UK, you'd be worried as well, but I think the rights of EU citizens will be guaranteed, so living in the UK.
And if we move further the opposite direction.
Well, let's move across the Atlantic to our favourite man himself. I'm going to ask you the question here. Donald Trump.
Okay.
Donald Trump, where's his presidency heading?
Well, there's a lot of the word impeachment has been tossed around a lot.
I don't like this tossing around of the word impeachment, because if you look at things realistically, it's not a good thing to impeach the US president, is it?
No, it's not. They tried it with Bill Clinton, correct?
Bill Clinton and Andrew Jackson were the only two US presidents ever impeached, and Clinton was at the end of his term anyway, so.
Yes. No, I think it's all a little unfair on Donald Trump. I think.
Where do you get that opinion from? A lot of people would say it's perfectly fair and that he's colluding with the Russians. What do you make of that?
Is there sufficient evidence to prove this?
I would say the evidence is vague, to say the least. Not only that, but Trump is making some big moves to really. He's going back to. It's kind of funny how it started off in the election as, oh, Trump's an idiot. You could never elect him to. And he set the narrative. Then the media started setting the narrative against him, and he hasn't liked that. Now the narrative's getting put against him, but now he's trying to switch it back again. He's come out fighting in recent days, and he said he is the worst treated politician in history. What? That's quite a statement to make.
It is, but I think it's a very bold statement to make, and probably a bit exaggerated. But I think they are treating him a bit unfairly. They're getting on his back. Like, you compare it to the Obama days, I found the media to be very pro-Obama, but most media outlets, as you would find, with the exception of Fox, are very anti-Trump. You get that feeling when you're listening or reading or viewing whatever platform you're getting your news from.
Does it feel to you that they're looking for excuses to go after Trump? Does it feel like they just can't stand the idea of Trump, and that there's not necessarily actually anything wrong with Trump? It's that it's sort of in their heads, if you will, that they're almost obsessed with having a Democratic president.
Well, they're certainly obsessed with Donald Trump. Everyone in the world's obsessed with Donald Trump at this stage. But yes, I kind of agree, because I think it's fact because he's different. It's working against the people. The impression I'm getting from a lot of Americans and people, they just want the same old, same old. But Donald Trump, he's a bit out there. He's different.
He's not a politician.
Yes, he's not a politician. He's not a career politician.
He's not a politician at all. Even as president of the United States, I can assure you he is anything but a politician.
So do people just see him as a businessman in Trump Tower, or a crazed lunatic, or what is it? What is it like?
That at the moment, I don't know what people want to think of Donald Trump, and that's the problem, is that they haven't allowed Trump to be president, because for so long he wanted the media scrutiny, because that gave him the attention. Now he just wants to get on with the job, and he's getting the attention he doesn't want. And for me, he's getting attention he doesn't want. He's getting negative attention now. And that's not good when you are the president. When you're not the president and you're running for election, all attention is good attention.
Yes.
But now I don't really see it that way. I think I can quite clearly say with absolute certainty that this is hurting him, because the media narrative being pushed against him. And it'll come out in time whether it's correct or not. It could come out in years to come that he didn't do anything illegal, that his alleged ties with Russia were completely falsified, or it could come out that they weren't. Either way, right now, the media narrative is pushing this more than the actual evidence suggests it needs to be.
Yes, that's correct. I tend to agree with that statement.
So, let's finish where we started. We'll bring it back to Irish politics. How long are we going to be waiting until this general election happens? Is it going to be 2021 and everybody's going to be growing grey hairs and wondering and sitting around a campfire and talking about Enda Kenny? Or is it definitely, certainly, 100% going to be happening within 12 months.
It's going to happen, in my opinion. I'm going to predict right now. It's going to be early 2018.
And what is going to happen in that general election? Where do you see that going?
Well, depending, as you alluded to earlier, it's going to depend. The Fine Gael vote's going to much depend on who's the leader. If it's Varadkar, it may dwindle a little bit, but if it's Coveney, I think it might just stay constant. As for Fianna Fáil, I think as much as many people will loathe the thought of it, I think they're making a comeback, and Micheál Martin is going to be the Taoiseach after the next general election, in my opinion.
So there's not going to be a Gerry Adams Taoiseach, no?
Not a chance, no.
No, I think in terms of Gerry Adams, we will never see a Sinn Féin Taoiseach while Gerry Adams is the leader of that party. There's too much stigma attached to him.
And I'm going to go out there and say, we don't know what Gerry Adams' intentions are for the next general election. Is he going to run again, or is he finally going to step aside? If he runs again, I think, once again, Sinn Féin won't perform as well as their exit polls will suggest. If he doesn't run again, I think they'll have their best performance ever. That's my view on it.
How well can they do with him as leader? That's the question that I see, because I kind of sit here and I kind of go to myself, I think that he's polling 18%. He won't get 18%, but what is the ceiling for Sinn Féin when Gerry Adams is president of the party?
I think they've hit it. I think they've reached their peak.
And that is 18%? 23 seats in the Dáil, is that their peak?
I think it is. Maybe give or take a few more, a few less, but I don't think they can truly progress as Gerry Adams as their leader.
So they can't top the 30 seat mark, which is quite, would be considered quite a symbolic mark to pass.
No. I'm going to stick my neck out there and say no, but it could happen, but I highly doubt it.
We're putting this on record. Sinn Féin aren't going to top 30 seats, according to James Nolan.
No, that's only if Gerry Adams.
As Gerry Adams as leader, yes. Let me clarify, yes.
But now, Mary Lou McDonald, I assume she'll win because she's probably the strongest politician they have.
I think she would just immediately be installed as leader. I don't even see there being a debate about it.
I'd say a Mary Lou McDonald led Sinn Féin would probably Pierce Doherty as the deputy leader. Will spearhead them over the 30 mark. They'll see their best performance. It'll be a new era for Sinn Féin, and a lot of as more of the old guard as Gerry Adams, Desi Ellis step aside. I think maybe it won't. The memories of the old Sinn Féin of the past, they'll never go away amongst the older generation, but it'll gradually start to fade. And I think a new era for Sinn Féin will emerge.
That's an interesting insight, and certainly I would be of the opinion that Fine Gael is a divided party. There's a lot of partisanship in it. It's Coveney versus Varadkar rather than Coveney or Varadkar. Whereas within Sinn Féin, I think if Gerry Adams was to say tonight, I'm stepping down, and in the morning Sinn Féin were going for a new leader, I think they would go and I think Mary Lou McDonald would go and contest it. I think the party would simply decide she's the leader, nobody else will challenge her, and it's that sort of unity. And I think you see it in Fianna Fáil as well. I think there's very little doubt that if Micheál Martin was to step down, Michael McGrath would become the leader. So,
yeah.
Whereas with Fine Gael, it's not so clear because they're at loggerheads, and I think the worry for Fine Gael is this could get ugly, this leadership race in the next couple of weeks, and they could hurt the party vote because they can't really debate one another because that hurts the party as a whole, as a unit.
Yes, that's a true statement. If we work further down the spectrum, though, I can see Labour having another poor performance.
I think Howland has been his leadership has been pretty disastrous. His approval ratings are terrible.
He's trying, and I've noticed he's been in the media a little bit in recent months. He's trying to get a bit of recognition, but it's not working.
What about even further down the spectrum? Solidarity, people before profit.
I think they always seem to their popularity always seems to rise around election time. I've noticed, but
In contrast to Sinn Féin, which is interesting.
They're too far left to ever progress into a serious contender in this country. And they're not big enough. They're not strong.
No, they'll always be a fringe party, but the fact is they almost got speaking rights in the last Dáil, which would have been...
They were one seat off, yeah.
It came down to the same constituency, rather incredibly. One I would like to put to you, a more interesting one. Ireland is a country where left-leaning politics tends to dominate. Now, I know Ireland doesn't generally follow the left-right divide. We're more of a pro or anti-treaty kind of country, and you'd have to really have the context of Irish history. But will we ever see the rise of, we've seen across Europe, this more far-right movement? Will anything like that ever occur in Ireland? An anti-EU, anti-immigration sort of party? Will that ever come about?
Not in the near future. It won't. No, there's no signs of anything like that happening. All the top parties seem to be pro EU in this country, like Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, for example.
Sinn Féin a bit more on the edgier side of things.
Peripheral, yeah. But I think the kind of outlook on it at the minute is it's too risky. It'd be too risky to go anti-EU in this country. I think that's the general outlook at the minute, because they probably question our survival without the EU. We're not as big an economy as the UK, France, Germany, for example.
Well, Germany is. Let's make it very clear. Germany's never leaving the EU. They are the EU.
I know that. Yeah, they are the EU. But I know that. But I'm just using them as an example.
Oh, I know.
But no, very economically, even they think Brexit's gonna have a big impact on our, for a number of reasons, socially, economically. Economically, they're desperate to wrap up trade agreements with the UK, which probably will happen because our Irish relations with the UK are pretty good nowadays, I think. Would you agree?
I would say, yeah, we've got a good relationship with the UK, and I want to see that continue.
Yes, so would I. And I don't think a hard border in the north is going to come into place either. I think common sense will prevail there. They'll sit down and realise that millions, how at least
millions. Hundreds of thousands anyway.
Thousands drive through that border either direction each day. So are they really going to go through the hassle of it? I don't think so. Sure, for argument's sake, if you're living up in Donegal, which is a part of the Republic of Ireland, you have to cross the border. If you want to get to Dublin, for example, from Donegal, the quickest route is to cross the border into Northern Ireland and then recross the border back over to the Republic.
Can you imagine crossing two borders to get to Dublin from Donegal? It would be ridiculous.
With a hard border.
It's a ridiculous enough scenario as it is, but to cross to that, or not ridiculous, but it's certainly a very, it's an interesting situation, but to cross two passport-controlled borders, just so you could go, you might have family in Dublin or vice versa, I think that's a situation that most Irish people couldn't fathom.
And people, UK residents in the north won't like it either because they want to get down to the south. I know people personally who are from my local area and their family up in the north. They want to go back and forth every now and again. It's going to be a load of hassle. And for business and economic point of view, will be as well.
That's very true, yeah. Certainly I think Brexit is a very complicated situation. But in the north, I think that it's unanimously, unlike Scotland where I think I don't think it'll impact them that negatively. I think in the north of Ireland, it will be a very negative situation for those people. And I'm not picking a side. I'm not saying I'm pro-Brexit or anti-Brexit here. I'm saying that I think the facts dictate that it will be a very tough situation for them.
Yes, and ourselves.
Ireland is going to have an interesting couple of years, that's for sure. Well, on that note, I think once you get to Brexit, you've hit the end of the road. So we'll wrap it up for this week. James, have you anything else to add before we turn off and go back to our normal lives?
I think I've touched on everything I want to touch on for this week, for our opening week. So we'll leave it at that.
And we'll have plenty more where that came from next week, where there is sure to be more on Trump, more on the UK, where the sort of fallout and the opinion polls based on the manifestos over there are going to trickle down into the polls. We'll have more on that, and of course we'll have more on the crucial leadership race in Fine Gael. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope you'll join in with the debate in the comment section down below. And indeed, we'll have a few more guests on in weeks to come, and they're going to talk about what they think. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.